South Korea will close out 2025 and welcome 2026 in the coming hours. At least 100,000 people have gathered for the New Year's bell-ringing event at Bosingak Pavilion in Central Seoul. Consumer prices here in the country eased to the lowest levels in 5 years this year, following the sharpest price growth in decades during the post-pandemic period. On the second day of Coupang data breach hearings, the e-commerce firm's interim CEO Harold Rogers states that the motive behind the data breach appeared to be an act of revenge stemming from resentment over being fired. Good evening. It's December 31st, New Year's Eve, as people around the world prepare to say goodbye to 2025 and welcome in the coming new year. And with just about 4 hours away from entering 2026, people here in South Korea are waiting for a new chapter with hope and excitement, including at Bosingak Pavilion in Central Seoul, home to the country's landmark bell-ringing ceremony. We go live to the site with our Park Junan standing by. Junan, Happy New Year's Eve.
Happy New Year's Eve as well, Tommy.
Well, Junan, I can tell it's one freezing New Year's Eve, but I'm sure the air is alive with joy and excitement for what the new year will bring, right?
Right, Tommy. As you just mentioned, I'm currently at Bosingak Pavilion, one of the places in Seoul. And as you can see behind me, there are so many people actually waiting for the bell ringing, which is about to happen at midnight in about 4 years. And it also means that in 4 hours, we will welcome the 2026, the year of red horse. Also, the temperature here outside is freezingly cold. I'm just as happy as many people here gathered to enjoy the arrival of the new year. Unlike last year, when the country was observing a national mourning period following a deadly airplane crash that claimed more than 800 lives, this year's atmosphere feels vibrant and full of energy. Let's take a listen to what attendees currently waiting for the ceremony had to say about it.
I'm running marathons these days, and since 2026 is the year of the horse, I think I'll do quite well when it comes to running.
My daughter took the college entrance exam this year, so it marks a new beginning. We came all the way from Gumi, in Gyeongsangbuk-do province, hoping to set new resolutions here.
Jongno District, where I'm standing, is expected to draw up to 100,000 visitors for today's bell-ringing ceremony. Across the city, major venues including Dongdaemun Design Plaza, Lotte World Tower, and Haneul Park are set to attract a combined total of up to 220,000 people.
Now, Junan, people are there for the country's traditional bell-ringing ceremony. Now, tell us more about the ceremony at the Bosingak Pavilion. What should people out there and our viewers look forward to tonight?
Sure, Tommy. So here at Bosingak, the event will start at 11 p.m. with a series of performances to create a festive atmosphere, followed by the introduction of the bell ringers, honor guests representing various sectors of society, including community leaders and culture figures. Seoul Mayor Oh Se-un would also deliver a year-end address reflecting on 2025. At the main event at midnight, the pavilion will be covered by 3 themed LED displays. The bell ringers will toll the bell 33 times in 3 sets of 11 strikes each. After the bell ringing ceremony, local band Crying Nut will perform 3 songs as a celebrity live performance.
I see. Now, Junan, while those events are ongoing, safety is a #1 priority. What steps have been put in place to ensure public safety tonight?
Right, I mean, as you just mentioned, safety is the most important thing important factor when it comes to celebrating. And to ensure today's safety, the police have deployed over 3,000 officers citywide, with about 1,760 focused on high traffic areas such as here. Also, the event zone here is divided into 12 control sections to manage the crowd. And not to mention, traffic restrictions are already in effect. Starting 6 p.m. tonight and lasting until 7 a.m. tomorrow, roads around Jongno, Ujeongguk-ro, and the north side of Cheonggyecheon Road will be closed with 400 traffic officers and 10 police motorcycles on patrol.
All right, Junan, you also stay safe and warm there. We'll get back to you at 11 p.m.
Of course. Back to you, Tommy.
Now, looking back on the year's consumer price fluctuations, South Korea recorded an increase of 2.1%. That is the smallest in 5 years. Ian Jin reports.
Consumer prices play a key role in gauging inflation. According to the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Wednesday, the Consumer Price Index for 2025 increased by 2.1% year-on-year, which is slightly above the Bank of Korea's inflation target of 2%. This figure marks the lowest such increase since 2020, when it was 0.5%. Inflation surged to 2.5% in 2021 before a huge hike to 5.1% in 2022 due to the impact of the pandemic, before moderating to 3.6% in 2023, then 2.3% in 2024. The Data Ministry said this month's inflation was mainly due to a sharp increase in petroleum product prices, which jumped 6.1% from a year earlier, marking the largest year-on-year gain since a 6.3% rise in February. The ministry added that prices of diesel surged 10.8%, while gasoline prices rose 5.7%, reflecting the impact of the weak Korean won. Year-on-year, petroleum product prices rose 2.4%, marking a return to an upward trend for the first time since 2022. A ministry official explained that because South Korea depends heavily on imports for energy, even though international oil prices have fallen compared with a year ago, rising exchange rates and a reduction in fuel tax cuts appear to have pushed up gasoline and diesel prices. Prices of agricultural, livestock, and fishery products climbed 4.1% in December, adding 0.32 percentage points to overall inflation. Imported beef prices increased 8%, the sharpest rise since August of last year. The Korean won remains among the world's weakest performing currencies, as it has over the past year. Meanwhile, the government said inflation could soon ease as foreign exchange rates stabilize, vowing to make every effort to keep everyday prices in check next year. 이은진, Arirang News.
The second day of National Assembly hearings into the Coupang data leak kicked off on Wednesday morning after the first session ended past 9 p.m. on Tuesday. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin has more.
The National Assembly entered the second day of hearings on the data breach scandal at e-commerce giant Coupang, with the Science and Technology Committee reconvening them on Wednesday morning. Several other issues involving the company besides the data leak were on the agenda, including accusations of unfair business practices and poor working conditions. The hearing is being held jointly with 6 other committees. Key figures from Coupang, including founder and chairman Kim Bom-seok, have been absent from the hearings, sparking sharp criticism from lawmakers. During the Wednesday session, Coupang interim CEO Harold Rogers stated that the motive behind the personal data breach appeared to be an act of revenge stemming from resentment over being fired. He also added that the suspect stored only a small amount of data and deleted it afterward without sharing it with any third party. By the end of the hearing, the session is also to decide on whether to file charges of perjury against Rogers, after he said on Tuesday that the company was instructed by the National Intelligence Service to meet with the suspect behind the data leak. However, the NIS denied these claims, stating that it had never issued such a directive to Coupang, but rather had advised the company to make its own decision regarding the matter. While expressing its intention to pursue charges against Rogers over a statement, the NIS added that it only had requested material from Coupang, as it had no authority to issue any commands or orders to the company. The hearings are set to continue as lawmakers further scrutinize the repercussions of the data breach and discuss potential regulatory changes to prevent similar incidents in the future. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung will be departing for Beijing this Sunday for a summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. For more on the South Korean leader's visit to China, we have our correspondent Kim Bo-kyung here in the studio with us. Bo-kyung, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Tami.
So President Lee Jae-myung will be having a steep visit to China starting this weekend. What's known to be on his itinerary?
Right, so his visit will start this Sunday, that is January 4th. And after staying in Beijing for 3 days, he's going to travel to Shanghai before returning home on Wednesday. Now in Beijing, he's going to hold a summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping and have a state dinner. The reason why he's traveling to Shanghai is to mark the historic significance of 2026. It marks the 150th anniversary of the birth of Korean independence hero Kim Gu, who was a key leader of the independence movement during Japan's colonial rule from 1910 to 1945. He was also the president of the Provisional Government of the Republic of Korea located in Shanghai, which also marks the centennial anniversary of its establishment. President Lee is also going to take part in events to promote partnerships between the country's venture and startup sector companies.
Now, Bo-kyung, it's only been about 2 months since President Xi visited South Korea's Gyeongju on the sidelines of the APEC leaders meeting and held talks with President Lee. Could you tell us about President Lee's visit to China hints at this time?
Right, so we need to first note that President Lee's visit to China is the first one for a South Korean leader for more than 6 years since former President Moon Jae-in's visit in December 2019. Now, experts are saying that the Chinese leader's state visit to South Korea and a reciprocal visit taking place just 7 months after President Lee's inauguration itself shows that bilateral relations are improving rapidly. Now, Chinese state media too, while citing experts, has said President Lee's visit would mark a new starting point for bilateral ties. For example, one expert at Shanghai University was quoted by the state-run Global Times as saying that President Lee's visit symbolizes a new beginning from a new starting point, while adding that bilateral ties will enter a phase of stabilization and recovery. Given that the tensions between China and the U.S. are still lingering after the tariff war that took place this year, one expert I talked to underlined that this shows the ties between the two are of great importance.
The summit hints at the restoration of bilateral ties, which had been stalled for some time, and that the strategic cooperative relationship between South Korea and China is very important in the context of global geopolitics.
And I'm sure there will be many items on the agenda for the two leaders to discuss. Bo-kyung, what could they be?
Right, so mainly the follow-up measures perhaps to implement the 7 MOUs that were signed between the two leaders during the previous summit. And the expert that I talked to said that instead of focusing on the sensitive matters, the two leaders are likely to tap on the economic cooperation. Take a listen.
The leaders are likely to discuss further accelerating the second phase of the Korea-China FTA negotiations and move beyond the previously stalled framework of cooperation and expand collaboration not in traditional industries of the past, but in more future-oriented industries.
For those not familiar with the FTA negotiations, the two countries had previously signed the FTA in 2015 and reached a limited agreement on opening the service and investment sectors. No consensus has been reached so far, but if Presidents Lee and Xi can conclude the second phase of the FTA negotiations this time, the scope of trade that was limited to manufactured goods and agriculture products could further include services and investment sectors such as finance, telecommunications, legal services, and culture. Also, although the experts said it would be a bit difficult for Seoul to discuss North Korean issues with Beijing, still eyes are on whether they could talk about denuclearization of the Korean peninsula and whether China will explicitly include such language in its official statements. The meeting itself has reignited hope of China lifting its restrictions on Korean culture content as well, so we would have to wait and see how things unfold.
Definitely, especially what will be included in the official statements. Right. Bo-kyung, thanks for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Unboxing videos are familiar online, but they're not usually done by world leaders. President Lee Jae-myung posted an unboxing video on social media today, offering a glimpse of a rare gift he received from the U.S. President Donald Trump. Our Song Yujin reports from the Blue House.
언박싱을 한번 해볼까요?
As President Lee Jae-myung opens the box, he reveals a golden key. President Lee posted this short video on social media on Tuesday, showing the gift he received from U.S. President Donald Trump.
백악관으로 가는 키. 백악관 문이 안 열리면 이걸로 열면 열린다는데 진짜인가 한번 확인해 봐야 되겠어요.
This comes after Presidential Chief of Staff Kang Won-sik unveiled that President Trump had sent the final one of 5 golden keys he personally designed, in return for what he called a meaningful gift from President Lee during their October summit in Gyeongju. At that meeting, Lee presented Trump with a replica of a golden crown from Korea's ancient Silla dynasty.
한국과 미국과의 새로운 시대를 위해
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
The 4 other keys are known to have been given to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, former Japanese Prime Minister Taro Aso, Tesla CEO Elon Musk, and football star Cristiano Ronaldo. President Lee wrote that he hopes the gift will help unlock an even stronger ROK-US alliance, thanking President Trump for what he described as constant friendship and deep trust. So the symbolic gift exchange comes as President Lee wraps up 2025, a year that saw 2 summits with President Trump, as well as the release of the long-awaited joint fact sheet on trade and security. Eyes are now on how their personal rapport, as well as how the ROK-US alliance will evolve in the new year. 송유진, Arirang News.
South Korea will elevate the authority of its Marines to strengthening the independent command role. On Wednesday, Defense Minister Ang Kyu-baek in a press conference said operational control of the 1st and 2nd Marine Divisions will be transferred back to the Marine Corps by 2028. The move reverses a structure in place since 1973, when the Marine Corps headquarters was disbanded and operational control was absorbed by the Army. The minister said the change reflects the growing role of the Marines, particularly in amphibious operations, island defense, and rapid response missions. Now, he also cited the need for clearer command lines in joint and combined operations. As such, the Marine Corps commandant will be granted authority equal to the Chief of Staff of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, raising the standing of the Marines to a so-called quasi-fourth service. The government will also consider promoting Marine officers to 4-star rank and creating a Marine Operational Command. South Korean content continues to garner popularity from its global audiences. According to Netflix's official companion website, Tudum, on Wednesday, Season 2 of Culinary Class Wars ranked first in the global top 10 for non-English shows for the 2nd consecutive week. The first episodes of the new season aired on December 16th and recorded more than 4.7 million views last week, topping the charts in 4 Asian countries, South Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Taiwan. Now, similarly, the film The Great Flood ranked first in the global top 10 non-English movies with more than 33 million views. The disaster movie was released on December 19th and reached number 1 in 53 countries, including the US, France, Spain, and Turkey. And Korean culture in France is moving beyond a popular trend, increasingly appearing in the regular lineups of French museums, heritage venues, and major festivals. And ahead of the 2 countries' 140-year anniversary of the diplomatic ties in the new year in 2026, our Oh Seung sat down with Korea's top culture official in Paris.
No longer seeking mere recognition, Korea's cultural presence in France is becoming institutionalized. Beyond what's trending in popular music, film, and content, Korea-related items are now appearing regularly at museums, heritage venues, and major festivals. That's according to Il, director of the Korean Cultural Center in Paris, who noticed a stark contrast from his student days in France more than 3 decades ago.
When I studied here 35 years ago, in most cases, people did not even recognize Korea as a country. But now, Korea's image and stature is incomparably higher. Korea is now treated at the level of an advanced country here, and France, in particular, has very strong cultural pride. Rather than economic advancement alone, they regard cultural awareness itself as a key indicator of being an advanced nation.
Korean participation in events such as the annual Avignon Festival is one such indicator, as well as the opening of the Pompidou Center in Seoul next year. With mainstream exposure to Korean culture in France initially coming through film, television dramas, and K-pop, Lee says broader engagement between artists, professionals, and government officials expanded cooperation over the past decade. His own career has focused on building Korea's cultural presence beyond the promotion of commercial trends.
In a place like France, raising overall cultural recognition matters. For long-term sustainability, building a serious, broad-based audience for literature, culture, and the arts is crucial. Because people here live a culturally rich life from an early age, with high expectations, they eventually recognize that Korea also has classical culture, beautiful hanbok, traditional roof tiles, fermentation culture, deep history.
One major milestone came last year when France's education and culture authorities listed the Korean Culture Center as an approved destination under the government's subsidized Culture Pass scheme for students.
My dream is that the term Hallyu and even Korean Culture Center won't remain pronouns, but become common terms like Mecca or Champagne, spoken naturally by French people from children to the elderly.
The center hosts art exhibitions, pansori performances, Korean film screenings, and public talks with prominent authors throughout the year. Korean language classes and hands-on workshops offer training in ceramics, cooking, calligraphy, and handicrafts. With such entry points, Lee says his mission is to make the wave of Hallyu sustainable through discovery.
Our center hosts a countless number of clubs, playing an incubator role to nurture and motivate aficionados so they voluntarily seek out, learn, experience, and discover Korean culture.
Lee says special initiatives have aimed to promote a deeper understanding of Korea's heritage over time rather than focus on one-off events. Around the time of the Paris Olympics, a 6-month program explored Korea's concept of 놀이, or recreational culture, by sharing music, performance, and everyday cultural practices.
This showed how Korea's culture of play connects to its history and identity, and how Korea's dynamism and creativity didn't appear overnight. Being able to help French audiences experience this has been deeply rewarding.
Since Lee's appointment in September 2022, the Culture Center has carried out nearly 250 programs and projects across France.
I want this center to be a place where people see, enjoy, and experience Korea, but also a cultural landmark in Paris that anyone would want to visit at least once. We're laying the first stones little by little, and I'm confident we can see that through.
Going forward, as preparations move ahead for the 140th anniversary of diplomatic relations, Lee hopes to continue unfolding new dimensions of Korean culture, its spirit, imagination, and sources of inspiration. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Paris.
The year-end cold wave is really making itself felt on the very last day of this year. Cold wave warnings have been expanded and strengthened across central areas, including Seoul, and eastern parts of Jeollabuk-do and northern parts of Gyeongsang-buk-do provinces. Tomorrow and the day after, the cold spell will get even stronger. Tomorrow morning, the temperature will plunge to -11 degrees, and by the following day, the temperatures will fall to -12 degrees, making much colder than today. The first sunrise of the new year in Korea will appear over Dokdo at 7:26 a.m. and around 7:47 a.m. Seoul will have its first sunrise of the new year. If you're heading out to enjoy the sunrise, please make sure to bundle up. Most areas will wake up to a sub-zero cold morning tomorrow with Chuncheon at -14, Daejeon at -12 degrees. It will remain cold with Seoul reaching -4 degrees, Gwangju and Daegu at 0 degrees. Frequent snow is expected in the Jeollado provinces and on Jeju Island until Saturday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. Wishing you a Happy New Year.
that is all we have for now. Well, we'll be back with our New Year special at 11 p.m. Korea Standard Time. Until then, goodbye.